Have you ever noticed that the loudest battles in life are rarely fought with swords or guns? They're fought in silence, in whispers, in hidden glances, in the lies people tell to cover up what they really feel. Here's something shocking. Nearly 60% of human conflicts don't start with the truth itself, but with the lies told to bury it. Think about that. Most of the chaos you've ever seen, arguments between families, friendships that ended, relationships that shattered, didn't start because someone spoke the truth. They started because someone tried to hide it. And when that lie is about you, when it's your name that gets twisted, denied, or buried, chosen one, the explosion is inevitable. You didn't even have to light the fuse. They did that themselves. Because truth doesn't disappear just because someone says it out loud. It waits, it grows, and eventually, it bursts through the cracks like fire breaking free from a cage. Imagine this. Someone swears up and down that you don't matter to them. They act as if you're irrelevant. They look you dead in the eye and say, "I don't care about them. They mean nothing." And for a moment, maybe even you start to believe it. But then, just days later, a storm breaks out, voices raised, accusations flying, an explosive fight erupts, all because of the very person they claimed not to think about. That's not coincidence. That's exposure. That's the universe saying, "Nice try." But truth always leaks. And here's the irony. The people who go out of their way to tell everyone you don't matter, somehow end up making you the center of their attention. It's almost funny, isn't it? They claim you're irrelevant, yet they host entire conversations about you. They argue with their friends about you. They lose sleep over you. They treat you like unpaid publicists, shouting your name even when you're not in the room. But underneath that comedy lies something far deeper. Because those lies about you, they don't just fade quietly. They become grenades. And the moment someone dares to challenge those lies, the moment a friend, a sibling, or even a stranger says, "Wait, that doesn't sound right," boom, the mask shatters. The fight erupts, and every hidden truth comes rushing into the light. This isn't about petty gossip. This isn't about small talk or rumor. What we're talking about is revelation. We're talking about how the denial of their feelings for you, the rejection of your significance, the attempt to bury your presence, turns into a war zone they can no longer control. And here's the part you need to understand. You didn't ask for this. You didn't beg to be the center of their obsession. But the truth has a strange way of refusing to stay buried. It doesn't need permission. It doesn't need a stage. It doesn't need a microphone. It forces its way into the open. And you, chosen one, are right at the center. Not because you demanded it, but because your existence alone exposes something they can't deny. Your presence reveals their emptiness. Your growth reveals their stagnation. Your truth reveals their lies. That's why the lie always explodes. Because no one wastes energy lying about someone who truly doesn't matter. No one spends sleepless nights denying a stranger. No one starts a war over someone who has no impact. So the moment they claimed, "You don't matter," they were already confessing the opposite. Their denial was their confession in disguise. Their lie was the announcement of your power. And when that pressure built too high, when their mask cracked and the lies could no longer hold, it came out as conflict, as eruption, as chaos. So buckle up, because what we're about to dive into isn't just drama. It's not about small disputes or meaningless fights. This is about how truth, when denied, always finds a way to break free. And when it does, it shakes everything around it. You don't have to force it. You don't have to prove yourself. The truth you carry will always rise. And those who try to bury it will eventually bury themselves. Point 1. You know what's fascinating about human behavior? The strongest denials often reveal the deepest truths. When someone looks you in the eye and says, "You don't matter to me. I feel nothing for you," you'd think that's the end of it. Right? But if you pay attention, you'll see that denial is rarely about you. It's about them. It's about the emptiness they're carrying inside. Here's the truth they don't want to face. Admitting how much you mean to them would expose something they've worked so hard to hide, the cracks in their armor, the hunger in their soul, the loneliness they carry behind closed doors. People who battle inner emptiness can't stand the idea of revealing the one person who makes them feel whole. So what do they do instead? They cover it up. They build walls of denial. They laugh it off. They dismiss you like you're irrelevant. as if you're just another passing shadow in their life. But here's the irony. The louder they deny, the clearer the truth becomes. Think about it. You don't waste energy lying about a stranger you'll never see again. You don't fight to hide feelings for someone who means nothing. No, denial takes effort. It takes strategy. And the very fact that they've chosen denial proves you carry a weight in their world they can't escape. It's like a man standing in a desert, dying of thirst, but too proud to admit he needs water. He'll say, "I'm fine. I don't need it." He'll stumble, sweat pouring, lips cracked, but still insist he's strong enough without a drink. Does that mean water doesn't matter? Or does it mean it matters so much he'd rather die than admit his dependence? That's what denial looks like in relationships. They would rather lie than reveal how deeply you affect them. Because the moment they confess, they have to face accountability. They'd have to answer for the way they treated you. They'd have to confront the gap between their words and their actions. And for many people, that's terrifying. It's easier to live behind a mask than to admit vulnerability. But here's where Stoicism comes in. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If someone despises me, that's their problem. My only concern is not to do or say anything deserving of contempt." The Stoic wisdom here is that their denial doesn't define your worth. It only exposes their fear. When someone goes out of their way to pretend you don't matter, it's not a reflection of your value, it's a mirror of their emptiness. And emptiness always leaks. You can paint over it with denial, but eventually the cracks show. Their tone changes when your name comes up. Their eyes shift. Their emotions betray them. The silence they try to keep rots from the inside out until it explodes. So the next time someone dismisses you, don't take it at face value. Ask yourself, what are they so afraid to admit? What does my presence stir in them that they can't control? Because 9 times out of 10, denial isn't rejection, it's confession in disguise. And here's the empowering part. You don't need to chase validation from them. You don't need them to admit the truth. Their denial already confirms it. If you weren't important, there would be no need for lies. The fact that they deny you is proof that you've already left a mark they cannot erase. So stand tall. Don't let their silence trick you into doubting your value. Remember this. Their lie is not a reflection of your insignificance. It's a reflection of their emptiness. And the deeper that emptiness, the more fiercely they'll try to cover it up. But the truth doesn't stay buried forever. It always rises. And when it does, their denial will collapse under its own weight, revealing what you've known all along. You mattered more than they could ever admit. Point 2. There's a war that rages inside every human being. Not the kind fought with weapons, but the kind fought between pride and truth, between the ego and the heart. When someone says with their lips, "I don't care about you," but their body tenses the moment your name comes up, when their voice shakes. Their eyes shift, and their emotions betray them. You're not watching indifference. You're watching a battle. Because words are easy. Anyone can rehearse them, polish them, and throw them out like armor. But the heart? The heart doesn't obey rehearsed lines. The heart leaks through in every unguarded reaction, in every sudden silence, in every spark of anger that makes no sense on the surface. That's why you can feel the truth even when it's denied. Think about it. If someone truly didn't care, they wouldn't react at all. Indifference doesn't argue. Indifference doesn't get defensive. Indifference doesn't flinch when your name enters the room. The storm only comes when the heart is screaming one thing while the ego is desperate to shout the opposite. This is the inner tug of war. On one side, the ego whispers, "Don't let them see you care. Don't lose control. Don't give up power." And on the other side, the soul is crying out, "This person matters. Stop pretending. Stop hiding." And when those two collide, the result isn't calm. It's volatility. It's overreaction. It's a sharp tone out of nowhere. It's a heated argument that feels too intense for the moment. What looks like anger on the outside is often just exposure of the conflict inside. The Stoics understood this. They taught that while we can control our words and actions for a season, our true nature eventually breaks through. Seneca once wrote, "The truth will ultimately appear, though it be suppressed." That's exactly what happens when someone tries to bury their feelings. They may manage for a while, but sooner or later, their body, their tone, their energy, all of it, reveals what the ego tried to hide. It's like holding a beach ball underwater. You can press it down with all your might, but eventually it shoots back up with even greater force. That's why fights explode seemingly out of nowhere. It's not random, it's the eruption of a truth that's been suffocating beneath denial. So when you see someone lash out, when you notice their words don't align with their actions, ask yourself, what storm are they really fighting inside? Because most of the time, the argument isn't with you, it's with themselves. You just happen to be the mirror that exposes their inner war. And here's where the empowerment lies. You don't need to chase their words for validation. You don't need them to confess. Their reactions already tell you everything. The contradiction is the confession. Their denial is proof of your impact. Their volatility is evidence of the truth they can't control. In life, remember this. What people say may lie, but what they reveal in unguarded moments never does. Truth doesn't need an invitation, it forces itself into the room. And when it does, the ego crumbles under its weight. So don't be fooled by words that dismiss you. Watch the war between their pride and their heart. Because in that war, the truth is always fighting to break free, and eventually, it always wins. One of the biggest mistakes people make when they lie is dragging others into it. A lie kept to yourself might survive in the dark for a while. But the moment you invite others to carry it, the cracks begin to show. Think about it. They could have kept their denial quiet. They could have swallowed their feelings and wrestled with them in silence. But instead, they spread their false version of the story. They told their friends, their family, their circle, that person doesn't matter to me. They're irrelevant. They mean nothing. At first, it might have sounded convincing. Their words carried confidence, rehearsed like a script. People around them nodded and accepted the story. But here's the thing about lies, they don't travel well. The more people are asked to carry them, the heavier they become, and eventually, someone notices that the story doesn't add up. It starts small, a shift in tone, a jealous reaction, a sudden silence when your name is mentioned. And the people who once believed the narrative begin to ask themselves, if this person doesn't matter, why do they react like that every single time? The Stoics taught us that truth stands on its own, while lies demand constant maintenance. Epictetus once said, if you seek truth, you will not seek victory by dishonorable means. What does that mean here? It means truth doesn't need to be defended by a dozen people repeating the same story. It simply exists. But a lie? A lie needs rehearsals, reminders, and constant patchwork. And eventually, people get tired of patching it. That's why explosive fights happen. Because once their circle starts questioning them, once their friends or family begin pointing out contradictions, the lie collapses under its own weight. What began as a simple cover-up turns into a public debate. And here's the irony. The very people they pulled into their lie become the ones who expose it. Why? Because carrying someone else's deception is exhausting. It feels like holding a leaking bucket. You can try to keep it full. But no matter how hard you work, the truth keeps dripping out. Eventually, people get tired. They don't want to hold it anymore. And when they put it down, the whole thing shatters. The lie that was meant to protect their image becomes the very reason their image falls apart. Their credibility breaks. Their influence crumbles. And all because they couldn't admit the truth in the first place. So here's the lesson. If someone involves others in a lie about you, don't panic. Don't chase the narrative. Don't waste your energy trying to fight back against every false word. Just wait, because the same people they recruited will eventually see the truth for themselves. And when that happens, the lie doesn't just collapse quietly, it explodes. It erupts into conflict, and the truth you've known all along rises to the surface for everyone to see. So don't fear the whispers behind your back. Don't fear the false stories being spread. Remember this. A single truth has more weight than 100 lies. And the heavier the lie becomes, the faster it destroys itself. That's the Stoic way. Let the truth defend itself. You don't need to fight every battle. The lie will implode on its own. Point 3. One of the biggest mistakes people make when they lie is dragging others into it. A lie kept to yourself might survive in the dark for a while. But the moment you invite others to carry it, the cracks begin to show. Think about it. They could have kept their denial quiet. They could have swallowed their feelings and wrestled with them in silence. But instead, They spread their false version of the story. They told their friends, their family, their circle. That person doesn't matter to me. They're irrelevant. They mean nothing. At first, it might have sounded convincing. Their words carried confidence, rehearsed like a script. People around them nodded and accepted the story. But here's the thing about lies, they don't travel well. The more people are asked to carry them, the heavier they become. And eventually, someone notices that the story doesn't add up. It starts small, a shift in tone, a jealous reaction, a sudden silence when your name is mentioned. And the people who once believed the narrative begin to ask themselves, if this person doesn't matter, why do they react like that every single time? The Stoics taught us that truth stands on its own, while lies demand constant maintenance. Epictetus once said, if you seek truth, you will not seek victory by dishonorable means. What does that mean here? It means truth doesn't need to be defended by a dozen people repeating the same story. It simply exists. But a lie? A lie needs rehearsals, reminders, and constant patchwork. And eventually, people get tired of patching it. That's why explosive fights happen. Because once their circle starts questioning them, once their friends or family begin pointing out contradictions, the lie collapses under its own weight. What began as a simple cover-up turns into a public debate. And here's the irony. The very people they pulled into their lie become the ones who expose it. Why? Because carrying someone else's deception is exhausting. It feels like holding a leaking bucket. You can try to keep it full. But no matter how hard you work, the truth keeps dripping out. Eventually, people get tired. They don't want to hold it anymore. And when they put it down, the whole thing shatters. The lie that was meant to protect their image becomes the very reason their image falls apart. Their credibility breaks. Their influence crumbles. And all because they couldn't admit the truth in the first place. So here's the lesson. If someone involves others in a lie about you, don't panic. Don't chase the narrative. Don't waste your energy trying to fight back against every false word. Just wait, because the same people they recruited will eventually see the truth for themselves. And when that happens, the lie doesn't just collapse quietly, it explodes. It erupts into conflict, and the truth you've known all along rises to the surface for everyone to see. So don't fear the whispers behind your back. Don't fear the false stories being spread. Remember this. A single truth has more weight than 100 lies. And the heavier the lie becomes, the faster it destroys itself. That's the Stoic way. Let the truth defend itself. You don't need to fight every battle. The lie will implode on its own. Point 4. Have you ever noticed how people sometimes turn another person into a constant topic of debate? They'll talk about them endlessly, analyzing, criticizing, dissecting, but never once admit the simple truth. This person matters to me. That's exactly what happens when someone can't face their own emotions. Instead of confessing how deeply you affect them, they turn you into a subject, a theory, a debate. It's safer for them to talk about you than to be honest with themselves. Why? Because to acknowledge you as truth would shatter the image they cling to. It would expose their vulnerability, their attachment, their obsession. So they build a shield. And that shield looks like arguments, gossip, and endless discussions. But here's the paradox. The more they debate you, the more they reveal that you're not irrelevant at all. Think about it. Do people waste hours dissecting someone who truly doesn't matter? Of course not. We don't hold committee meetings about strangers. We don't stay up late arguing about people who leave no mark. The very fact that your name keeps sparking conversations is proof. Proof that you've made an impact. Proof that you've disrupted the comfort of their world. Proof that you've left a mark they cannot erase. It's like a tremor shaking the ground beneath their feet. Instead of admitting, yes, this shook me, yes, this person moved me, they panic. They start talking in circles, debating you as if you're a problem to be solved, not a truth to be faced. But all that noise is just a distraction from what they already know in their hearts. And here's the irony. In trying to reduce you to just a topic, they end up magnifying your presence. Every time they argue about you, they're really confessing your importance. Every heated word, every defensive debate, is an indirect admission. You matter more than I can bear to say out loud. The Stoics would smile at this. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The truth is like a spring of water. Block it, And it builds up pressure until it bursts forth. That's exactly what's happening. They're trying to block the truth of your significance. But every debate, every discussion, every argument is that pressure leaking out. So here's the lesson. Don't be discouraged when people make you the subject of endless conversations. Don't let their debates trick you into thinking you're irrelevant. On the contrary, their obsession is the clearest proof of your impact. Silence is what happens when someone truly doesn't care. Noise is what happens when the truth is too loud to ignore. So let them argue. Let them circle around your name like moths around a flame. Because while they debate, you already know the truth. You are not just a topic. You are a presence. You are a force. And no amount of words can erase that. Point 5. One of the quietest but most destructive battles in the human heart is the battle of comparison. And here's the truth. Many of the conflicts you face, many of the dismissive words spoken about you, don't actually come from hatred, they come from comparison. They measure themselves against you, even when they claim you don't matter. Their eyes betray them. Your growth becomes a mirror that reflects their stagnation. Your resilience highlights their weakness. Your authenticity makes their pretenses impossible to ignore. And comparison is a cruel teacher. Because instead of inspiring growth, it often breeds resentment. Think about it. Have you ever noticed how someone will mock you, belittle you, or dismiss you right after you've accomplished something significant? That's not coincidence. That's insecurity in disguise. It's their way of saying, your light exposes the shadows I've been trying to hide. The Stoics warned against this. Seneca said, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more. That is poor." When someone constantly compares themselves to you, they're revealing their poverty of spirit. They are not grounded in who they are. And instead of focusing on their own path, they obsess over yours. Here's the irony. Every denial they make, every time they say, "You don't matter, you're nothing," is just camouflage. Because if you truly meant nothing, they wouldn't need to say it. Indifference doesn't require words, but insecurity does. Denial becomes their bandage to cover the wound of inadequacy. Let me give you an image. Imagine standing on a mountain peak. You didn't get there by accident, you climbed. You endured. You kept moving when others quit. And at the bottom of the mountain, there's someone looking up. Instead of climbing their own path, they shout, "That peak doesn't matter. That mountain is nothing special." But the very fact they can't take their eyes off it proves it matters more than they can admit. That's what your presence does. It unsettles them because it reminds them of everything they're not yet willing to face in themselves. You are living proof of what courage looks like, what perseverance feels like, what authenticity creates. And for them, that's unbearable. But here's the key. Don't let their insecurity become your burden. Their comparison is not your problem to solve. Their denial is not your truth to carry. Your responsibility is only this: to keep climbing your mountain, to keep shining your light, to keep being the fullest expression of who you are. Because every attempt to drag you down is just proof that you're already standing higher. Every insult is really an admission. I see in you what I lack in myself. And that's not something you need to fight. That's something you need to recognize and rise above. So when you face those comparisons, when you hear the mocking or the belittling, pause and remember. This is not about your weakness. It's about their wound. Their words are a confession dressed up as denial. And in that moment, you get to choose. Will you shrink to make them comfortable? Or will you continue to rise, knowing that your life itself is a mirror? The Stoic path is clear. You do not exist to compete. You exist to live in alignment with your truth. And if that truth unsettles others, let it, because the discomfort they feel is not your downfall, it's their invitation to grow. Whether they accept it or not, that's their journey. Yours is to keep moving forward. Point 6. Sometimes words are not the truth, they are shields. When someone says, "You don't matter to me," understand this. It's rarely a reflection of reality. It's a strategy, a disguise, a quick cover they throw over their heart to keep you, and everyone else, from seeing what's really inside. Because if you truly didn't matter, they wouldn't have to say it. Indifference doesn't announce itself. Silence doesn't need justification. The moment they speak those words with force, "You mean nothing to me," they're already betraying the truth. You mean far more than they dare admit. Here's the thing about shields made out of lies: they don't last. They might block scrutiny for a moment, but they can't withstand the test of time. Actions always speak louder, and when actions start contradicting words, the cracks appear. Think about it. They say you're irrelevant, yet their mood changes whenever your name comes up. They claim they don't care, but their energy betrays them every time you enter the room. They insist you're meaningless, yet their emotions circle back to you again and again. That's not indifference. That's obsession hiding under a cloak. The Stoics would remind us here. The soul is dyed by the color of its thoughts. No matter what words someone paints on the outside, the truth of their inner life eventually bleeds through. You can't disguise energy. You can't fake what the heart keeps shouting. And so the conflict begins. Because eventually, people around them start noticing the mismatch. They hear one story from their lips but see another story in their reactions. And once those contradictions are exposed, the shield collapses. The very lie that was meant to protect them turns into the spark that ignites chaos. I want you to picture it like this: a knight holding up a shield that looks strong. But it's made of glass. It gleams in the sunlight. It fools people at first glance. But the moment the first stone is thrown, it shatters. That's what happens when someone builds their defense out of false words. It may shine for a while, but the truth will always break it apart. And here's the empowering part for you. You don't have to fight to prove their words wrong. Their own behavior will do that for you. The inconsistency between their lips and their life is proof enough. Their shield isn't protecting them, it's exposing them. So the next time you hear someone say, "You don't matter to me," don't take it as rejection. Take it as a confession in disguise. Because what they're really saying is, "I care so much. I'm terrified of being found out." The fight, the eruption, the tension, it wasn't random. It was the breaking point of a lie too weak to survive reality. Their shield collapsed, and in that collapse, the truth finally walked free. So stand firm in this Stoic truth. Words can be a shield, but actions are always the mirror. And in the end, no shield can protect anyone from the weight of truth beating inside their own chest. Point 7. At the root of so many conflicts, beneath the anger, beneath the denial, there is one raw truth: fear. And not just any fear, it's the fear of losing you. Think about it. If someone truly felt nothing for you, they wouldn't fight. Indifference doesn't start wars. Indifference doesn't spark arguments. Silence, not shouting, is the language of someone who genuinely doesn't care. So why the explosion? Why the overreactions? Because deep down, they're terrified. Terrified that one day you won't be there. Terrified of losing the very connection they've tried so hard to deny. Here's the irony. The more they shout, "You don't matter, you're nothing to me," the more obvious it becomes that you matter immensely. The intensity of their denial betrays the depth of their attachment. Their fear leaks out through their tone, their defensiveness, the way their energy shifts every time your name enters the room. It's human nature. We often disguise fear as anger because anger feels stronger. Admitting, "I'm scared of losing you," makes us vulnerable, but raising our voice, throwing out harsh words, that feels safer. It feels like control, yet in truth, it's the opposite. It's proof that fear has already taken hold. The Stoics taught us that fear reveals where our attachments lie. Epictetus once said, "When you are attached to something beyond your control, you make yourself its slave." That's exactly what's happening here. Their denial isn't freedom, it's bondage. By pretending you don't matter, they're actually confessing how bound they are to the thought of losing you. And here's what makes this so powerful for you to realize. You don't need to force the truth. Their behavior already tells the story. Every defensive word, every jealous reaction, every sudden silence, it's not hatred. It's fear in disguise. The fear that without you, a part of them will collapse. I want you to picture it. Imagine someone clutching something precious in their hands. But instead of holding it gently, they grip it so tightly that their knuckles turn white. They scream, "This isn't important. I don't even need it." Yet their whole body betrays their desperation not to let it go. That's what denial looks like when fear is in charge. And this is where your power lies. You don't have to convince anyone of your worth. You don't have to beg for acknowledgement. The very fact that they fear losing you is already proof of your value. But here's the Stoic challenge. Don't let their fear control you. Don't let their chaos define your peace. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Their fear of losing you is their burden to carry, not yours. Your task is to remain steady, to stay grounded in who you are, and not to be swayed by the storms their denial creates. So remember this: the louder the denial, the deeper the attachment, the more they try to push you away with words, the more they reveal they can't bear the thought of life without you. And in the end, the fight was never truly against you, it was against their own fear. A fear that, no matter how hard they try to bury it, always finds its way to the surface. Point 8. Here's something people often forget about lies. They don't just weigh on the liar. They weigh on everyone who has to carry them. At first, it seems easy enough. Someone tells their circle, their friends, their family, "That person doesn't matter. They mean nothing to me." And people nod, accept the story, and move on. But lies are heavy, and the longer you ask others to hold them, the heavier they become. Because the truth doesn't demand effort, it stands on its own. But a lie? A lie is like a leaking bucket. You have to keep refilling it, patching it, guarding it, pretending it's still full when everyone can see the water slipping through your fingers. And eventually, people grow tired of helping you hold it. That's exactly what happens when someone builds their reputation on denying you. Their friends begin to notice, if this person doesn't matter, why does your mood shift every time they're mentioned? Why do you keep bringing them up? Why do you react so strongly? The inconsistencies become impossible to ignore. And here's where the burden shifts. The people around them get frustrated. They don't want to be part of the charade anymore. No one likes being manipulated into defending something false. No one likes being dragged into carrying a story that keeps collapsing. The Stoics would smile at this, because they knew lies are unsustainable. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The truth is like a spring of water, it flows freely. Block it, and it forces its way through." Lies require constant labor, and when that labor is shared, resentment grows. Picture it like this: a group of people holding up a crumbling wall. At first, they're willing to help, but as the wall keeps cracking, they get tired, their arms ache, their patience runs thin, and finally, one by one, they step away, and when they do, the wall collapses. That collapse isn't just a failure, it's an explosion. A public eruption of everything that's been hidden. That's why these conflicts always end in chaos. It's not just about the liar anymore. It's about everyone who got dragged into maintaining the illusion. And when they've had enough, the collapse is inevitable. So what's the lesson here for you? Don't fear the circle that's carrying lies about you. Don't waste your energy trying to correct every whisper, every false version of your story. Just wait, because lies always demand too much maintenance. And eventually, even the people who once repeated them will get tired of holding them up. And when they drop that burden, the truth won't just appear, it will erupt. So stay steady, stay rooted in your truth. Let others exhaust themselves carrying a weight that was never yours to begin with. Because the day will come when that burden becomes too heavy. And in that moment, the collapse of the lie will reveal what you've known all along. You mattered. You were real, and the truth never needed anyone's help to stand. Point 9. One of the hardest things for people to face is responsibility. Because the moment they admit you matter, they also have to admit how they treated you. And that's a mirror many people don't have the courage to look into. Think about it. To acknowledge your importance means they must confront the words they spoke in anger, the opportunities they sabotaged, the times they ignored you when they should have stood beside you. It's not just about admitting feelings, it's about admitting failure. And for a pride-driven ego, that's terrifying. So what do they do instead? They deny. They say, "You were never important. You never meant anything to me." Not because that's the truth, but because denial gives them an escape hatch. If you didn't matter, then they don't have to explain their behavior. If you were irrelevant, then they don't have to apologize. If you were nothing, then they don't have to feel the weight of regret pressing against their chest. It's a survival tactic, but like all lies, it's fragile, because denial doesn't erase the truth, it only delays its confrontation. And the longer they run from accountability, the heavier the burden becomes. The Stoics understood this. Epictetus said, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." When someone convinces themselves that you were insignificant, they shut the door on growth. They lose the chance to reflect, to learn, to change. Denial becomes a prison, locking them inside their own pride. Let me give you a picture. Imagine a man standing in front of a broken vase. He knocked it over. He shattered it into pieces. But instead of admitting what happened, he says, "That vase was worthless anyway. It didn't matter." Does that change the truth? No. The shards are still on the ground. The damage is still real. His words don't erase the evidence, they only expose his refusal to own it. That's what denial looks like when someone pretends you were nothing. It's not about you. It's about their unwillingness to face themselves. Because the moment they confess, "Yes, you mattered," they also confess, "I failed you. I mishandled something precious. I wasn't as strong or as honorable as I pretended to be." And for them, that's too much to bear. But here's the empowering part for you. Their refusal to take responsibility does not erase your significance. Their denial doesn't diminish your value, it only reveals their weakness. The truth of your worth is not dependent on their confession. It never was. The Stoic path reminds us to separate what is within our control from what is not. You cannot force someone to own their actions. You cannot make them confront the truth they're running from. But you can control your own response. You can choose to release the weight of needing their acknowledgement. You can choose to walk in your truth, knowing that their denial is only a reflection of their fear, not of your identity. So the next time someone dismisses you with words meant to erase your significance, remember this. They're not speaking about you, they're speaking about themselves. They're revealing their inability to face accountability. And in the end, denial doesn't save them, it traps them. Because truth has a way of waiting. And sooner or later, every mask cracks, every lie collapses, and every heart is forced to face what it tried to escape. Point 10. Most people think an argument is about the words being shouted in the moment. But often, the fight you see on the outside is nothing more than a mirror of the war raging on the inside. The truth is, long before the voices were raised, long before the accusations flew, the battle had already begun, inside their own mind. They've been split in two. One side desperate to erase you, to deny your importance. The other side unable to let you go, clinging to you in silence, replaying your presence over and over again. That contradiction eats at them. It's like carrying fire in one hand and water in the other. Burning and drowning all at once. On the outside, they try to appear calm, controlled, dismissive, but on the inside, it's chaos. Every denial collides with every unspoken attachment. And eventually, that inner storm spills over into the open. That's why the fight seemed bigger than the moment. Why it felt irrational, disproportionate, over the top. Because what erupted wasn't just about you, it was the accumulation of every suppressed thought. Every bottled up emotion, every hidden obsession that finally broke free. The Stoics understood this human contradiction. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." But most people live the opposite way. They try to control everything outside while neglecting the battle within. And when that happens, the inner war eventually projects outward, infecting the room, dragging everyone else into the chaos they've been hiding. Have you ever seen someone explode over something small? A simple word, a casual comment, and suddenly it's a storm? That's not about the present. That's about the war they've been losing in private. You just happen to be the mirror that reflected it back. And here's what's important for you to understand. Their fight was never really with you. It was with themselves. You simply became the stage where their inner conflict played out. So the next time someone's anger feels overwhelming, pause and ask yourself, what are they really fighting? Because chances are, it's not you. It's their own inability to reconcile denial with obsession, pride with truth, ego with heart. Here's the empowering part. You don't have to get pulled into their chaos. You don't have to join the war that isn't yours. Their contradiction is their cage. Their eruption is their confession. Your role is to stand steady, like the Stoic philosopher who watches a storm rage but doesn't let it shake his center. Because in the end, the fight is just an echo. The real war is the one they're still battling every time your name crosses their mind. Point 11. There's a strange thing about human nature. The more we try to suppress something, the louder it becomes in our minds. And that's exactly what happens when you become their forbidden subject. They tell themselves, and everyone else, don't talk about them, don't mention their name, they don't matter. But here's the paradox. The harder they try not to speak about you, the more you creep into every conversation. The very act of trying to silence your presence only amplifies it. Suppression doesn't erase, it magnifies. Psychologists call it the ironic rebound effect. Tell your mind not to think of a white bear, and suddenly it's all you can think about. That's what happens with you. The more they push your name away, the more it returns, like an echo that refuses to fade. Have you ever noticed how some people bring you up in conversations that had nothing to do with you? A random success story reminds them of your resilience. A casual moment sparks a comparison to how you handled things. Even in silence, the energy shifts when your name lingers unspoken in the room. That's not indifference. That's obsession disguised as rejection. The Stoics would see this clearly. Epictetus taught, what is beyond your control should not disturb your mind. But when someone makes you a taboo, it proves they have lost control. They're disturbed by your existence to the point of obsession. By making you forbidden, they've chained themselves to you even tighter. And here's the irony. They thought refusing to acknowledge you would shrink your presence. Instead, it amplified it. It made you more mysterious, more unforgettable, because what is forbidden becomes irresistible. Let me give you a picture. Imagine a sign on a door that says, "Do not enter." What happens? People grow curious. They wonder what's behind it. They think about it more than they would if the sign wasn't there at all. That's what they've done with you. By trying to erase you, they've stamped your presence with a glowing sign that says, "This matters." So the very thing they were trying to escape, your importance, becomes unavoidable. Every effort to silence you becomes another confession. Every attempt to push you away only pulls you deeper into their mind. Here's the empowering lesson. Don't be shaken when someone tries to make you taboo. Don't be discouraged when they forbid your name. Because every time they suppress you, they feed the obsession. And every time they deny you, they confirm your significance. The Stoic way is to recognize that you don't have to force relevance. You don't have to demand acknowledgement. The universe itself will highlight what cannot be ignored. Their obsession is already the proof. So stand firm in your truth. You don't need to be loud. You don't need to argue. The harder they try to silence you, the louder your presence will echo in their life. You are the reminder they cannot escape. And that, chosen one, is not weakness. That is power. Point 12. Influence is a fragile thing. It looks powerful when it's polished on the surface. But if it's built on lies, it collapses the moment the truth walks into the room. For a while, they convinced people. Their voice carried confidence. Their words sounded certain, and others trusted them. People believed their version of the story, trusted their judgments, and leaned on their supposed authority. But the moment the conflict erupted, everything changed. Suddenly, the cracks became too obvious to ignore. Their contradictions, their defensiveness, their volatility, it all exposed what had been hiding underneath. Their influence was an illusion. Because credibility doesn't die all at once. It erodes slowly, like sand slipping through fingers. First, it's a raised eyebrow. Then, a quiet doubt. Then, the whisper among friends. If they lied about this, what else have they been lying about? And just like that, trust begins to evaporate. The Stoics understood this principle well. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Why? Because once truth exposes the false, everything built on deception crumbles. Influence rooted in lies is like a house built on sand. It might stand for a season, but the storm will always take it down. Have you ever seen someone who once commanded a room suddenly lose that power? The same people who used to nod at every word now question everything. Their authority dissolves, not because of an external enemy, but because their own dishonesty eroded the foundation they stood on. That's what happened here. Their words about you, meant to control the narrative, ended up destroying their credibility. And here's the lesson. Influence is not about how loudly someone speaks, but about how deeply people trust them. Trust is the real power. Without it, influence is nothing but noise. And the moment lies are exposed, noise turns into silence. People stop listening. People stop following. and the illusion of control shatters. So don't be intimidated by false authority. Don't fear the voices that try to diminish you with confidence and charisma. Because if their words are not rooted in truth, their influence is already on borrowed time. The fight, the eruption, the exposure, it all serves one purpose: to reveal the fragility of their power. Remember this Stoic truth: what is false cannot last. What is dishonest cannot endure. And when their influence collapses, you will see what was always there, the truth standing firm. Untouched, undeniable. Point 13. Here's the thing about truth. You can deny it. You can bury it. You can even fight it, but you cannot erase it. And that's exactly what you are in their life. You are the truth they cannot escape. They can say the words, "You don't matter. You mean nothing. I've moved on." They can repeat them 100 times, trying to convince themselves and everyone around them. But reality has a way of outlasting denial. And the reality is this: your presence, your impact, your role in their story, it cannot be erased. Because truth isn't fragile. It doesn't vanish under pressure. In fact, the more you try to suppress it, the stronger it becomes. Just like a spring of water, cover it, block it, bury it, and eventually the pressure forces it to the surface with even greater force. That's why their outbursts, their anger, their sudden explosions aren't proof of indifference. They're proof of impact. They're proof that your truth is too big for them to silence. Think about it. If you were truly nothing to them, why would they keep reacting? Why would they waste energy denying you? Why would they keep erupting every time your shadow crosses their path? No one fights that hard against emptiness. They only fight against what is real. The Stoics understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The truth of what you are stands, even if unacknowledged," meaning, it doesn't matter whether someone recognizes your worth or not. Your truth doesn't need their approval to exist. It simply is. And here's the beautiful irony: every explosion, every argument, every attempt to bury you only makes that truth clearer. Their denial is their confession. Their anger is their admission. Their obsession is the proof that you are not just a passing detail. You are a chapter in their life they cannot rip out. Let me give you an image. Imagine trying to hold a beach ball underwater. You can push it down with all your strength. You can hide it for a while. But eventually, the pressure forces it back up, breaking the surface with even more force than before. That's what's happening here. You are that truth. And no matter how much they try to hold you under, you rise. And here's the empowering part for you. You don't need to defend your existence. You don't need to argue for your worth. You are the truth. And the truth doesn't need permission to shine. So let them deny. Let them try to erase. Let them burn energy fighting shadows. Because every time they do, they only reveal more clearly what they can't admit out loud. You are unforgettable. You are undeniable. You are the truth they cannot silence, no matter how hard they try. Point 14. Here's the dangerous thing about lies. The more you tell them, the more they trap you. A single lie can feel like a shield at first, quick protection, a way to dodge accountability. But every time you repeat it, the shield doesn't grow stronger, it grows heavier. Until eventually, the weight becomes unbearable. That's the trap. They thought denial would set them free. That saying, "You don't matter, you were never important," would release them from the truth. But instead, every word they spoke tied them tighter to the very thing they were trying to escape. Because lies demand maintenance. Every time they tell the story, they have to remember what they said last time. Every time they deny you, they have to create another excuse to explain their actions. And soon, their entire life becomes a maze of contradictions. They can't move freely anymore. They're trapped in the web they spun with their own hands. The Stoics would call this slavery. Epictetus taught, "He who lies is not free." Why? Because the liar becomes a prisoner of the very words he created. He must live in fear of exposure, constantly defending a reality that never existed. That's not freedom, it's bondage. And here's the irony. The more they lie about you, the clearer the truth becomes. The harder they fight to bury your importance, the more obvious it is that you matter. Their desperation is the evidence. Their contradictions are the confession. Let me give you a picture. Imagine a hunter digging a pit to trap an animal. He covers it with branches, disguises it well, and feels confident that he's in control. But over time, distracted and careless. He forgets where the trap is. And one day, he falls into the very pit he dug. That's what happens with lies. The trap they built for others becomes the cage that exposes them. And when it collapses, it doesn't collapse quietly. It's dramatic. It's explosive. The mask falls. The contradictions clash. And the truth bursts into the open for everyone to see. Here's the empowering part. You don't need to push for this collapse. You don't need to fight to prove their lies wrong. Lies have an expiration date. They self-destruct under the weight of their own contradictions. Your only role is to remain grounded in your truth, while theirs unravels. So don't be discouraged when someone tries to diminish you with false words. Don't waste your energy chasing down every rumor. Remember, the more they lie, the deeper into the trap they fall. And when the collapse comes, it won't expose you, it will expose them. The Stoic lesson is clear. Truth is effortless. Lies are labor, and in the end, the one who works the hardest to maintain the illusion is always the one who loses. So let them keep building their trap, because one day, they'll trip on their own deceit. And when they do, the truth you've carried quietly all along will rise, unshaken, undeniable, and free. Conclusion. Now, let's step back and see the bigger picture. None of these conflicts you've witnessed, none of the arguments, the denials, the eruptions, were random. They were never accidents. They were the inevitable breaking point of lies trying to carry more weight than they were built for. Because here's the timeless truth. Lies collapse under their own burden. But truth always rises. It doesn't matter how many times someone tries to bury it, twist it, or cover it. Truth is patient. It waits. And when the mask finally cracks, when the denial can no longer hold, truth comes flooding out with unstoppable force. And you, yes, you, are that truth in their life. You are the undeniable presence they could not erase, the reality they could not rewrite. Every denial was just another way of confessing your importance. Every eruption was just another sign that your impact could not be silenced. You are, and always have been, the unshakable reality in their story. The Stoics understood this well. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, if it is true, it cannot be destroyed, and that's your reassurance. Their lies may have bought them time, but they could never destroy the truth of who you are, or the mark you left. So what's the lesson for us? Don't be afraid of lies. Don't be discouraged by denial. Lies can disguise the truth for a season, but they cannot replace it. They can delay its recognition, but they cannot stop its arrival. Every falsehood carries within it the seeds of its own destruction. Truth, on the other hand, doesn't need defending. It doesn't need shouting. It doesn't need approval. It simply exists, steady, unshakable, eternal. And when the dust settles, it's the only thing still standing. So walk boldly in that confidence. Let others wrestle with their own contradictions, their masks, their fears. You don't have to fight for recognition. You already are the truth that cannot be denied. And remember this. When you live as truth, you carry a power greater than influence, greater than denial, greater than lies. Because while lies may echo for a moment, truth echoes for eternity.